Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and as we get closer and closer to the iPhone 12 launch, we get more and more information about what to expect. So I'll talk about iPhone 12, when to expect iOS 14.1, as well as the Apple event, Apple TV, and more. But the first thing I want to talk about is today is the 9th anniversary of Steve Jobs' passing. And so it seems like it was just yesterday where we got the iPhone, and then the 3G, 3GS, iPhone 4, and then Steve Jobs was gone from Apple and gone from all of the things he'd brought to this world. And so it's very sad, but I'd really be interested to see what he thought of iOS 14 today, but it's 9 years later. So that's pretty incredible to think about that it's been that long. Now, the next thing is Greg Joswiak was added to the leadership page on Apple.com. So if you go to the Apple.com leadership page and scroll down, you can see all the leaders of the company, and Greg Joswiak is the Senior VP of Worldwide Marketing. He was added to the page where Phil Schiller, who used to have that role, was moved to an Apple Fellow. Maybe he'll advise Joswiak, and we'll have to see what happens going forward, but he's been there a long time, and Greg Joswiak is taking the place, and we've known this for a while, but they just updated it on their page. Now, as far as new products coming out, well, according to Fudge or Chocobit on Twitter, there's a new Apple TV coming with an A12X or Z processor and an A14X processor. And so what that would mean is that there's a newer, faster, more powerful Apple TV in the works. We've known this for quite some time, but the interesting thing is Fudge says there's a new controller in the works. He didn't say remote, he said controller. And also he said that Apple Arcade is getting big money for AAA titles to compete with things like Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, I'm not sure you could actually compete with Zelda as it's sort of its own thing, but to get AAA titles like that, maybe we'd get Call of Duty on there using a controller. It's hard to say, but A14 should be more than powerful enough to do a lot of that heavy lifting. So it'll be interesting to see what we'll have in the future. Now, as far as iPhone 12 is concerned, well, we haven't seen an event announcement for it yet. And many people are saying that we're going to see invitations as soon as the 6th. So today is Monday the 5th. We should see invitations, according to many people, on Tuesday the 6th for an event to happen next week. And so we should expect that to be coming very soon with 4 different phone announcements. iPhone 12 mini, which would be a smaller size like this, iPhone 12, iPhone 12 Pro, and iPhone 12 Pro Max. And so it seems like we're going to get those. Of course, production has ramped up to 24 hours a day. They're working hard pushing out the products because they'll need millions available when people pre-order them. And so multiple sources, though, are saying that the lowest amount that they'll offer as far as storage and those sorts of things will be 64 gigabytes. So with the non-Pro iPhones, people are saying 64 gigabytes, maybe iPhone 12 mini, and then the iPhone 12 Pros would start at 128 gigabytes. That seems reasonable to me. I would expect that. And the other thing many people are saying, based off of iOS 14.2 Beta 2 code from my friend Steve Mosier, is that there won't be any headphones in the box either. So instead, we'd have a super slim box like this, and instead of getting headphones in the box like we got with the iPhone 12 Pro, as well as a charger, which isn't in this box, instead we would just get, well, the phone and a lightning cable, and that is it. Maybe a new braided lightning cable, but instead we wouldn't have this thick box that we have here. We would have a thinner box and I guess that would save the environment for a lot of people that don't need it. But there will be people that do need the charger and the earpods or AirPods. So unfortunately, you'll have to purchase those separately. But I have a ton of power bricks laying around. For me personally, that's not a problem. But when you're paying $1,000 plus for a phone, well, I would really like to see those in the box, especially maybe a faster charger. Maybe the new 20-watt charger I would love to see. So we saw that with the latest iPad, which is interesting, the lower cost iPad. I would love to see that included in the box of the iPhone 12 Pro Max, but it looks like we won't have that this year. Now, if there's multiple options, if you don't need it, well, then that makes sense to me, but it seems like that's not going to be the case. Now, it seems entirely too soon to hear about the iPhone 13, but according to analyst Ross Young, iPhone 13 will come with a 120 Hz ProMotion display. And this particular iPhone that I'm holding is a clone I showed in a different video that has 4 cameras that really aren't real, and it actually runs Android, but I showed it in a different video as sort of a reproduction, and it actually works, but it's pretty terrible. But if you want to check it out, check out that other video. But this particular phone probably won't look anything like iPhone 13, but apparently it seems like it will have a 120 hertz display next year. Now, if Apple doesn't include that with this year's iPhone 12 Pro models, well, then that's a pretty easy prediction that we would see it in the following year. Now, also in the following year, it looks like we're not going to get a new iPhone SE until 2022. Now, Apple does not put out a new iPhone SE every year, so this makes sense. Maybe they'll put one out later on that looks more like an iPhone 11, or maybe a smaller size with the iPhone 12 mini taking its place. It's hard to say until we know what Apple announces in a couple weeks here or in a week or so, but we'll have to wait and see as far as the iPhone SE. I think this is the perfect phone for a lot of people that just want a budget phone with high-end specs. So iPhone SE, it can wait another year, I think. I don't think that will be too much of an issue. Now, as far as the next phones Apple is working on, well, apparently they're still working on folding phones, and there was a recent patent filing that they're working on self-healing foldable displays, specifically foldable displays that could be heated up to heal the actual surface, since that seems to be one of the big issues with them. You can actually dent the Z Fold 2 with your fingernail if you're not careful. It's a warning on the label, so if you could heat that up slightly and have it heal itself, similar to the wrapping that you would put on a car, the clear wrapping. I actually have that on the bumper of my car, where if it gets scratched, you can heat it up and it will self-heal itself, or it will do it in the sun. It would be neat to have a screen or a display that does the same thing, and apparently Apple's looking into that. Now, as far as iOS 14.1 or what looks to be 14.0.2, I would expect that as soon as tomorrow. In fact, Apple actually released tvOS 14.0.2 with bug fixes today. We weren't really expecting that, but it seems like they may release that before iOS 14.1 with some bug fixes to iOS 14. So look for that as soon as tomorrow, and this makes sense since Apple recently stopped signing iOS 14, meaning you can no longer downgrade to that version. So I would really look for this. It could be even later today, but most likely tomorrow around 1 p.m. Eastern Time or Wednesday at the latest. Now, as far as iOS 14.2 Beta 3, I would expect that in the following week. Unless Apple switched to a 1-week schedule, it seems like we're still on a 2-week schedule. We're fairly early on with iOS 14.2 Beta 2. So Beta 3, I would expect not this week, but next week. So it's possible they would do this week, but I really think it'll be the following week. Now, as far as the new iPad Air, at least at the time of recording this video, we haven't seen anything from Apple as to when we can order it. If you go to the website, you can take a look at it, see the different options that we have, the different colors, and that's about it. We can view the pricing, but we can't do anything else. So we're waiting for that, but apparently the benchmarks have leaked online as to what the A14 CPU is capable of. So it's a 6-core chip that reportedly has a base frequency of 2.99 gigahertz and 4 gigabytes of RAM. And it looks like it's reaching 1,583 for single core, 4,198 for multi-core. If we take a look at this current iPad Pro, let's take a look at the Geekbench scores on this to compare. See where I put the app. Here it is. We'll take a look at the last time I ran a CPU benchmark on it, and you can see the single core is actually slower at 1,127 versus 1,583. As far as multi-core, well, the iPad Pro is still a little bit faster with 4,619 versus 4,198, but it's very close, and that single core frequency should be really nice to have a couple extra advantages when just doing single threaded processes or single core based processes. And so that should be something I'm really looking forward to trying and seeing what it can actually do compared to this iPad Pro. Now, speaking of the iPad Pro, it looks like Apple's still going to come out with that mini LED-based iPad Pro, like I said last week. It'll probably look very similar to this particular model, but instead it will use mini LEDs for the backlight, making things more power efficient and hopefully even brighter than it is now for HDR and things like that. And then others have said that they're going to be pushing that to MacBooks later that year and converting everything over to mini LED. And so that doesn't surprise me really. That's sort of the latest tech coming up. And then eventually we'll get micro LED, which will control the display and the pixels itself. So that should be really interesting once we see that. Now, as far as the Mac is concerned, well, we're still waiting for that Apple Silicon Mac that is said to come in November, or at least be announced in November. November. However, Apple pulled an update as far as macOS. macOS Catalina actually had some bugs along with Safari 14, so they pulled that update and then later released a supplemental update for macOS Catalina. Now, I know a few of you have said, why aren't you doing videos on that? And there's just bug fixes in them. No new features. It's just a bug fix to take care of problems people were having. But if you'd like me to cover those, let me know in the comments below. Now, finally, 4K Netflix. macOS Big Sur will allow 4K Netflix on T2 equipped Macs only. So that really means you have to have an iMac Pro or a 2018 Mac or newer, or if you have an iMac, you have to have a 2020 Mac or newer. They're using that T2 chip for security, probably for DRM, but also possibly for encoding. And so some particular Macs will support it, some will not, unfortunately. But that's really all we'll have for Netflix. So if you watch Netflix on your Mac, hopefully you'll have that ability. If not, you can still watch it in 4K on a TV though. And that's it for this week. Hopefully we'll see some new updates, like I said, as soon as tomorrow. And of course, I'll keep you posted on Twitter, on YouTube, and other places as well. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.